Hi, this is Terry Blackmore. I'm Assistant to the Dean of General Studies at the University of Mississippi, and I want to welcome you to our Bachelor of Multi-Disciplinary Studies degree program. It's a very unique degree program, and I think a lot of its popularity can be attributed to the fact that there's a lot of flexibility within the courses that you can choose and within the minors that you get to choose for this program. At least that's what a lot of our students say when we ask them why they've chosen this degree. The word that comes up most often is flexibility. But within that flexibility, we do have a structure. So that's what I want to share with you in this video is our framework for the multidisciplinary studies degree and the associated requirements. So let's start off with the MDS Framework. So you can see that we require 120 credit hours for the degree, and that's pretty standard at the University of Mississippi. Most degree programs require a minimum of 120 credit hours. And that's broken down into three different areas. So we have part one would be the general education core curriculum. Those are going to be like your art courses, your humanities, composition, and things I'll get into a little more specifically in just a minute. That usually is about 30 to 32 credit hours. And then the three minors that you choose, that usually adds up to about 54 of your credit hours. And then finally, the third part would be our general electives. And that usually ends up being about 34 to 36 credit hours. So I'm going to break down these all a little bit more specifically. So let's look first of all at the 120 degree applicable hours that are required for the degree. When we talk about degree applicable, what I mean by that is, for example, if you're transferring a lot of hours, you may have taken maybe 72 or more credit hours from a community college. The university only allows 60 of those credit hours to be counted from a community college. So what we would do is, even though all those hours transfer in, we would take the 60 hours that best fit your multidisciplinary studies degree program and use those credit hours, and the extra credit hours would be just that, extra credit hours that aren't necessarily degree applicable. Also keep in mind that if you repeat a course, it may show up on your transcript as being additional earned hours. However, you can only count a course towards your degree one time. So for example, if you got a D in a course and you repeated it and got a C later on, your transcript may reflect all of the credit hours that you earned for that particular course, but we can't use all of those hours. We can only count the credit hours for the course one time. Also, there are some courses that are developmental studies courses, like maybe intermediate algebra. Those kind of courses don't receive any credit at the University of Mississippi. We also have a limit on EL courses. Those will be courses that transfer in as exercise and leisure courses. So maybe if you want to take like a 1 credit hour jogging or a 1 credit hour tennis course, I think we have a 2 credit hour scuba diving course. Those are fine courses for you to take as electives, but we do limit those to only 6 hours that will count toward the 120 hours required for your multidisciplinary studies degree. Also keep in mind that as you're looking at the 120 credit hours, that at least 30 hours, that's 25% of your degree, have to be taken at the 300 level or higher. Now those can be spread out across your general education, your elective courses, and your minor courses. So let's look specifically now at our general education core curriculum requirements. So we require 6 hours of English composition. We require 3 hours of a college level math course. A lot of you may have already taken college algebra from the institution that you're transferring from, or elementary statistics, or maybe even a higher level math such as trigonometry, or calculus. If you haven't already had a math course, the one that we typically recommend to our students in multidisciplinary studies is that you take Math 120, which is our quantitative reasoning course. It's a very practical math course that is typically for students who are not in a major or a minor that is math or science based. We also require 6 hours of humanities, and those humanities courses can come from things like history, literature courses, or if you took a foreign language before transferring to the University of Mississippi. And at Ole Miss, we have some really neat and interesting humanities subject areas like African American studies, classics, gender studies, or Southern studies. Then we require 6 to 8 hours of natural sciences. That's usually 2 science courses, and each need to include a lab. They can be taken from 2 different subject areas. The ones that students usually choose from would be astronomy, biology, chemistry, geology, or a physical science course. But again, keep in mind that you have to have a lab with each of your science courses. We also require a fine arts course, and that typically needs to be something that is going to be an appreciation course like art, dance, music or theater appreciation, or an art history course. We don't generally allow students to take an art studio or a music studio course to use toward your fine arts. And then finally, for our general education requirements, we require 6 hours of a social science course, and that can come from anthropology, geography, economics, journalism, psychology, political science, or sociology. So you can see that even within that general education core curriculum framework, there's a lot of room for choice there, which our students really enjoy. Now, looking at your minor requirements, again, you have to choose 3 minors, and there are over 65 minors, I believe now, and new minors being added every year. With each minor, those requirements are determined by the departments that are offering the courses. So for example, the Department of English sets the requirements for an English minor. The Office of General Studies doesn't do that. So it's not necessarily that your minor, you can just take any classes in English. You may have to take some specific courses as they're outlined in the catalog. So just keep that in mind. Most minors are 18 credit hours, or roughly 6 courses. There are, however, some that are only 15. A math minor is only 15 credit hours, but there are some that require even more credit hours, up to 21. Art and art history are 2 minors that require 21 credit hours. The requirements for all of the minors are in our catalog, or you can take a look at our website, which is listed here, generalstudies.olemiss.edu/minors. If you take a look at that, you can see a listing of all of our minors that we offer according to the campuses that we offer them on. And for the ones that you're interested in, just click on the title of the minor, and that will take you to the current catalog requirements for that particular minor. Let's talk about general electives. I mentioned earlier that that comprises about 34 of the credit hours, or a little more than 25% of your 120 credit hours required for the degree. That kind of depends on what minors you choose. So as I mentioned, most minors are 18 credit hours, but some are a little bit less, some are a little bit more. So your general elective credits would vary a little bit depending on the choice of your minors. One of the things that you want to do is work with your academic counselor to make your general elective credits count. That's usually about 11 courses that you can take that aren't required, can just be something that you're interested in. But talk with your academic counselor, because they'll know a lot of times what some electives are that might be really good to enhance your career goals, or to enhance a particular minor that you're in, or higher education that you may be thinking about getting a master's degree. So definitely talk with your academic counselor and make those general electives count, and don't just look for something that you think might be an easy course to get those credit hours out of the way. And then let's look at grade requirements for the degree. All degrees at the University of Mississippi require a minimum and an overall grade point average of a 2.0. That's a C average. Again, that's a university requirement. So when we talk about your resident GPA, that's just the GPA for all of the classes that you take while you're a student at the University of Mississippi. It doesn't include your transfer GPA. So when we look at your overall GPA, though, that does factor in the grades that you received from other institutions that you transfer in. But I just want everybody to be aware that we do look at both your resident as well as your overall GPA in terms of whether or not you can have your degree conferred when you complete all of your courses. Another requirement that we have, this is a degree-specific requirement. The Multidisciplinary Studies program requires that you get at least a minimum final grade of C- for every course that you want to apply to one of your minors. So if you take a course that's specifically required for one of your minors and you were to get a D in that, you would have to repeat the course. In some cases, if it's something like a sociology minor that just requires 6 courses in sociology and you get a D in a sociology course, then you might be able to use that toward your social sciences that are required for your general education core curriculum, or use it toward one of your electives. Now, some minors in their requirements, they specify that you have to have a minimum grade of C for each course applied to the minor. So just be aware that if you were to get a C-, that does not meet the requirement of a C. Some minors also require a 2-point average in courses applied to the minor. So for example, if you were to get the minimum grade of C- that we require for each of our students, but it's in one of those minors that requires a 2.0 average, all those C- in 6 courses are not going to get you to the 2.0 average that's required in the minor. So just make sure that you know what the requirements are for each of your minors. So it's really important that you look in the catalog and that you're well aware of specific requirements that may apply to your minors. A final specific one that I've only seen a couple of times, but there are a couple of minors that require that at least 6 of the credit hours for that minor be taken in residence, which means that they need to be taken from the University of Mississippi. So again, just so you're aware of that as well. Now, this is a multidisciplinary studies degree requirement that we don't allow what we call double dipping. Of course, nobody at a restaurant likes it when folks are double dipping in the chip dip. So we kind of use that to refer to the fact that we only allow you to count a course to satisfy one of our degree requirements. So for example, let's say you're minoring in sociology, you're going to end up with 6 social science courses, but none of those are going to be able to be counted as your social science requirement for the general education core curriculum, because you can only use them in one place. You can use them either towards your minor, or you can use them towards your social science requirement, but you can't use one course to satisfy 2 different requirements. And this gets a little tricky sometimes where we have overlapping course requirements in 2, sometimes 3 minors that students will choose. In those cases, you'll work with your academic counselor to help you select additional course that can be counted toward one of the minors. So here's an example I have of that. So we may have a student who is minoring in general business and accountancy for 2 of their minors. General business minor requires either Principles of Accounting 1 or Principles of Accounting 2. toward that minor. But the accountancy minor requires both of those courses for the accountancy minor. So in a case like that, typically what we would do is apply the Accounting 201 and 202 towards your accountancy minor, and then your academic counselor would help you select a different general business elective that you could use as a substitution for that requirement in the general business minor. So one final thing is just to be aware that it is your responsibility as a student in multidisciplinary studies to know what your degree requirements are, as well as the specific requirements for each of your minors. Now, you're going to be assigned an academic counselor who will help you navigate those requirements, but in the long run, it is your responsibility to make sure you're aware of their requirements and that you meet all of their requirements in order to have your degree conferred in multidisciplinary studies. So one way to help you keep on track is, again, I mentioned the catalog, taking a look at what your requirements are for each of your minors, but we also have a degree audit and a degree progress report that's in a student's MyOleMiss account that you can take a look at on a regular basis, and it's going to keep you up to date each semester. When you complete courses, it'll mark certain requirements as completed and show you which courses are applying toward that requirement. That is going to be something that we address in another video. Since there's really more than we can cover in this one, we'll go into a little bit more specific detail on how you can access that degree audit report and some tips you need to understanding your degree audit. One thing we want our students to do is to review your degree audit every semester before you come in for your advising appointment, and come in prepared with any questions, or if something looks wrong on your degree audit, please be sure to let your academic counselor know or check with your dean's office. And again, anytime that you might have questions about anything pertaining to the requirements for your multidisciplinary studies degree, please contact the Office of General Studies, since we're your dean's office, and we're more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. And again, people always say there's no such thing as a dumb question. So even if you feel like it's something you should already know, we are more than happy and would rather that you contact us so that we can straighten out any possible misunderstanding of a degree requirement before it might become a problem further down the road. So thanks again. If you have any questions about your degree requirements or about anything that I have covered in this video, please feel free to contact us. You can email us. It's probably the best way to get in touch with somebody right now. Email us at generalstudies@olemiss.edu, and somebody will answer your question as quickly as we can. Thanks. I look forward to the day when I can meet you in person.